name of your section. Oh, just a moment, no. I'd love to have you add the name of your section to your name, so we can just kind of see who's in the room and which sections are represented. That'll be helpful. We just kind of typical Zoom protocol. If you could stay on mute unless you're speaking. And then if you have a question, either raise your hand or put the question into chat. Our different presenters will let you know if they'd prefer questions to wait until the end of their portion, or if you can ask questions along the way. So we'll let you know that as we go. And we do have someone monitoring the chat, so we will catch your questions. Don't worry about that. We don't have a scheduled break today, but please do tend to your personal needs as they arise. So feel free to do that. Don't worry about that. And then we will be recording this program. So if you would like to turn off your video or step away, we understand. We will be recording this program, and that will be on the volunteer toolbox, hopefully within about a week. So that is an option as well. And then I will be introducing our presenters along the way. We have a list of them today. So rather than doing that at the beginning, we'll just introduce folks as we go along the program. Slide, please. Right, and Noah, you can start the recording now.
All right.
Okay, here's our agenda for the day. We're going to start off with an icebreaker, followed by a session on FY25 budget planning, followed by a section on new member engagement, why and how, executive committee retreats, what and why, some sections team updates, and then our closing remarks, including our door prize drawing. And that will be it for the day. I think we have enough time planned, whether we get a little bit ahead and then need more time, not quite sure, but I think we can fit everything in comfortably. So please do put your questions in the chat or raise hands along the way. And if for some reason we can't get to a question during the presentation, we will return to it afterwards. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Platchey, our Director of Advancement, to give a short welcome.
All right, thank you, Carolyn, and welcome everyone to the meeting this morning. As Carolyn said, my name's Kevin Platchey, and I am the Director of the Advancement Department here at the bar. And the Advancement Department is really here to administer and deliver a wide array of the member services and benefits to the members of the bar. And so we do that in a lot of different ways. We administer the 29 practice sections. We also support the Washington Young Lawyers Committee and our STAR Committee, the Small Town and Rural Practice Committee. We administer mentorship programs. Our CLE program is housed within the Advancement Department. Our professional responsibility program, which has the ethics line that members can call and get advice, is within Advancement, as well as our member wellness program and our practice management program. So everything we do in Advancement is designed to advance our mission of serving the members and the public, and really to ensure the integrity of the legal profession and to champion justice. And I just want to say, by kicking off this meeting, thank you to all of the 29 practice sections, all of the sections within the bar, because you are key partners in helping us carry out that mission. And the sections do that in many ways. You administer CLE programs, you deliver them, you provide scholarships to a whole lot of programs that are important to members. You share information on the listservs. And help with the production of desk books, and a whole lot of other programs that I could go on and on about. But the main purpose of talking about this is to thank you, because we couldn't carry out our mission without your help and support. The other thing the sections do, aside from helping us advance our mission, is further our purposes under GR 12.2. And if you look at the rule, it's interesting. If you've got some free time, I'm sure you all just have tons of it. It's interesting to go read the rule because there are many things that WISPA are articulated in GR 12.2 that the section specifically help WISPA carry out. I listed a few of them. One of our purposes is to promote an effective legal system that's accessible to all, to provide services to our members and the public, to foster and maintain high standards of competence, professionalism, and ethics among members, and to administer programs of legal education. Those are some core functions that we have a purpose of being under the general rules of the court. And we, again, could not carry out all of these purposes and our mission without the help and support of the section. So again, thank you. I just think it's important to point out the connection, the real integral connection that the sections have to the organization in carrying out our mission and our purposes under the Supreme Court rules. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for all the work you do in support of our members and in support of the public. And Carolyn, I'll turn it back over to you to get us started.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. And I realize I failed to introduce myself. I hope that most of you or all of you do know me, but in case you don't, my name is Carolyn McGregor, and I'm the Sections Program Specialist here at WISPA. And I'm going to turn it over to my, as we like to say, my sidekick, Noah Betke, Sections Program Coordinator, to do an icebreaker for today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Noah Betke. I'm the Sections Program Coordinator. I work closely with Carolyn, and I do a lot of the back end stuff on the websites and stuff. I've had conversations with a lot of you, so I'm so glad you all could make it. We're gonna start with a nice, easy icebreaker. We're gonna divvy up into different breakout rooms, but first, I'm going to be adding a link in the chat. It's a Microsoft form, and we'd like you to participate if you are comfortable doing so by typing out your answer to the third question here. So we're going to split up into break rooms, and we'd like you to, introduce yourself. What position, role do you have on your executive committee? What executive committee you're on if you're part of the sections, and then we'd like you to talk about when you entered the legal profession, what experience helped you feel most connected to other attorneys in your section and or practice area? What things helped you feel more at home, more engaged with, things in your legal profession, in your workings, to feel more connected to your section and your practice? So here we go. We're going to jump into break rooms and have everyone introduce themselves, and we'll go from there. Here you go. Oh, don't forget to click the link in the chat if you'd like to participate in just typing out the third question. Whoops, hold on a second. I'm so sorry. That didn't work correctly because for some reason it changed back to one room, and I did not mean to do that. I'm so sorry.
Hey, Noah, how long will we have in the breakout rooms?
We're going to do about 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay.
Is what we're going to try and do. Thank you so much, Kevin. I totally forgot to mention that. So we'll pull everyone back here in about 20 seconds. Wish it allowed you to do it just automatically. Oh, in case you all haven't been paying attention to the news as well, we've all been joking around this morning about happy Eclipse Day. All right, let's try that again. I'm so sorry, everyone. I totally messed that up and only put one breakout room. Here we go. We're going to do it again. I'd like to share with you all the Microsoft form that we have. Give me one quick second. Okay. So we had some good some good responses here. The ongoing CLE practice group and affinity group meeting opportunities, general outreach, emails, magazines, help them feel connected to other attorneys in their section or practice area. Started as a deputy prosecuting attorney, which has had its own program that provides annual training for various levels of criminal caseloads. Had an attorney who mentored me extensively throughout the first few years of our practice. We love that. Mentors are a great portion of what several of the sections do. And we always really love working with sections on those kinds of things. Older mentors, again, the same thing, teaching the profession, taking to depositions, mediations, trials, being a member of DR section, not an attorney, but a conflict resolution practitioner. I'm sure that gives great experience and great camaraderie between, those types of work. So thank you all so much for joining and taking the time to fill out our form. I'm going to remove my share now.
You know, at least on my end, it wasn't sharing.
Oh, it wasn't? Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know why that didn't go through. Anyways, we'll send out the responses to that for people if they would like. So thank you so much for participating in the icebreaker. I'm going to hand it back over to Carolyn. Oh, Carolyn, I think you're muted.
Oh, slide, please. Sorry. Like, why is the slide not changing? Okay. Okay, so we're on to fiscal year 2025 budget planning. And to help us out with this, we have Maggie Yu, our controller, and also Shanti Raghu, our education programs lead, who are going to assist with this portion of the program. Maggie?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Maggie Yu. I'm the controller for the Bar Association. And I'm here, thank you everyone, your time. I'm here to presenting the 2025 budget planning. Next slide, please. So for fiscal year 2025 budget schedule, here's the list of schedule. I'm gonna just read through the dates. So April 15th, so the budget materials was sent to the section leaders. And then May 1st is the budget process drop-in call. And then May 31st is B&A reviews and approves the PMC. June 7th is section leaders submit the first draft of a budget worksheet and a due change request. June 24, sections team sends draft budget comments to section leaders. And July 19, deadline for sections to submit final budget worksheet. And August 9th, WSBA budget and the B&A a committee meeting reviews sections budget. And September 6 to 7, WSBA Board of Governors approves the budget. This is the whole year of 2025 budget schedule. As usual, we present every year. Put a little silent if there's no question, and we can go to next slide, please. So what is the document you will receive? So there's a 2 bullet point documents. So there's items for submission. So 2025 section budget request worksheet and the request to change a member dues. That's a submission. And also we provide the information. So we will provide section membership dues history and a dues count and section physical policy. And also we will provide the 25 per member charge calculation and a section split cover memo, if applicable. So all materials distributed on April 15th. As usual. So next slide, please. So for items for submission, here's 2 items, the submissions. So 2025 section budget request worksheet. So simple request worksheet included in the meeting materials. And the worksheet includes 2019 through 23rd and 24 as of February budget and actual financial statement as your reference. And also 2025 budget column for section leaders to input dollar amounts for your 25 budget. And on the section narrative column will be filled out by section, explain the purpose of the fund, and also any calculation or additional information to support 25 budget figure. And then also request to change a member dues. This is only needed if we're planning a change to membership dues for 2025. So also both items due by June 7 of 2024. All right.
And Maggie, I'll just to clarify, this section budget request worksheet is the first draft of the budget that the sections are going to submit, right?
Yes.
So with the FY19 to FY23 historicals, that's so the sections, the section EC can look at what's occurred from FY19 up through February of FY24 to get some context on what to budget for FY25, right?
Correct. So they have a reference and they can look at the historical number, the actual.
Okay. And then that's what's going out on April 15th.
Yes.
Okay.
All the material will be sent out April 15th.
Okay.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So this is informational items. So as the previous slide we talked about, you will receive the section membership dues history last 5 years from 2020 to 2024. And also membership count history last 5 years, 20 to 2024. And also we will send you the section physical policy. So in the policy, there's a couple of bullet points I wanted to just point it out. So the policy provides information about the WSBA's guidelines for section financial activity. And the fund balance guidelines, including there's a 3 bullet point I wanted to talk about on the slide. So section fund balance should be enough to sustain a consistent level of programming in the event there are severe fluctuations in annual section membership, which is 3 months worth of the direct programming expenses are recommended as guidelines. And the second bullet point is a section are discouraged from maintaining fund balance in excess of 2 years worth of direct programming expenses and specified purpose. And the third bullet point is section cannot budget a deficit fund balance. Any
Maggie,
questions? Mhm.
Maggie, can I jump in and do
Yes,
a little
please.
bit of
Thank you.
explanation, particularly around that third bullet point? But essentially, these are bullet points taken out of the fiscal policy. But to really boil down the first two bullet points, the fiscal policy says that, and it's not a hard line written in stone must, but it's pretty much saying this is sort of the recommendation, is that the sections maintain essentially 6 months worth of direct expenses, programming expenses, looking back historically in their fund balance. So sort of on average over those 6 months of direct expenses that you're keeping at least that much, 6 months worth. But on the flip side, the recommendation is that you don't carry like a real extreme fund balance, like a real high one, because the idea is that you're using section dues on things that benefit your members, right? So it's just saying to kind of keep a balance with it. You want to keep enough, but not too much. So that's kind of what it's saying there. It's a little more this is a little bit more of a rule, and you can understand why in the third bullet point is that the sections can't budget to a deficit fund balance. So if you're figuring your budget for the year and your expenses are going to spend all of your fund balance, then you're essentially spending all your money, right? And you can't budget to spend into a deficit because you can't spend money you don't have, basically. Now, there are a couple sections that have pretty tight fund balances, and sometimes it works out that that the section's planning to incur some savings in the current budget cycle, but they haven't reflected yet in the financials. And because they're doing a full budget projection for FY25, it will sometimes show that they're going into a deficit because the savings that they're planning for the current year haven't caught up. So if you're in that situation, we'll flag it and work with you to get it to where you're not showing a deficit. And what we can do in that instance, and I know this isn't a lot of sections, but there are a couple that run tight fund balances that may have this issue. We can work with you to figure out what your estimated savings are that you're projecting for the current fiscal year, and prepare an entry, a credit entry to the expenses for the current budget to offset those savings, to identify those savings and offset the expenses, so it won't show a deficit budget based on the projected savings that the section's planning to save in the current year. So if you find yourself in that position, we can work with you to get to the place you want to be and what you're planning. There's just some specific accounting entries we need to make to do it.
Great, thank you, Kevin. All right, next slide, please. So this is a continued informational item. So we provide the 2025 per member charge calculation. And the 2025, the PMC is scheduled to be reviewed and approved by Budget and Audit Committee by their May 31st meeting. And then, and also we will provide a section split cover memo if applicable.
And if I may, Maggie, I'll just chime in here quickly. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Shanti Ragu. I'm the WSBA Education Programs Manager. And just wanted to chime in here specifically because the section split cover memo speaks to WSBA CLEs and sections who choose to partner with WSBA CLE. So if you are a section who partners with WSBA CLE, and many sections do, to deliver a full half or multi-day CLE, those will fall under the section CLE fiscal policy. And in short, there'll be a memo included with your materials that goes into details of what we anticipate your section to receive based on the share of any net that would be observed in FY25. So questions about that memo or anything about the section fiscal policy can come to me. I'm happy to help and chime in on that.
Thank you, Shanti. Next one, please. So here's some tips for budget planning. So
Maggie, I think this is my slide if you are comfortable.
okay, no, that's good. I
Okay.
will turn it over to you. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, thanks. And we'll have a moment for questions. You know, if you have any questions for Maggie when we get to the end of this section, we'll open it for questions. So I have some budget planning tips for you as you are going through the planning process and looking at your worksheet and the different, the memo and the different pieces that we're sending. So when you are reviewing the budget timeline, think about if you need to set a different meeting for your EC or adjust your date somewhat, depending on what your bylaws require. Do you need to have an EC vote to approve the budget before you submit your first draft, before you submit your final version? I would recommend, you know, once you get the kickoff memo, looking that over and seeing if you need to adjust any of those dates so that you're able to do that with enough advance notice for your EC and not at the last minute. So that's a suggestion there. When you are starting your planning, think about whether you want to involve the chair-elect or someone else who might be in leadership that you know already is going to be in leadership on the executive committee in the coming year. They might have some ideas for projects and activities that you would want to budget for. And it's helpful for them to be able to, you know, outline those, make some room for it in the budget so that when the next year term rolls around, they're not confined by what you've already proposed. It is possible to submit a memo to spend unbudgeted funds and get approval for that, but it's an extra step and it can just add extra time as you're trying to plan things. So it's good to have a little bit more input as you're planning before the budget is approved and final. The budget narrative column, and the next slide, I'll be talking through the worksheet and what it looks like. And there's a column for you to provide some narrative as you're planning the budget worksheet. This column is really critical. We cannot emphasize enough how important it is. And if you return your first draft to us with no narrative, we will come back and say, please provide narrative. And the reason we do so is because not only does it capture for you and your future executive committee what your thinking is as you're assigning money funds to these different budget categories, it provides the history so that you can go back and your future EC members can go back and see what you were thinking from past years as they're doing their future budgets. It also helps my team to know what you are thinking when you're in your budget year and you're saying, we want to use this fund for this, or we're planning this. We can look at your narrative and say, okay, so they want it to come from this. They were planning these 3 receptions. This is part of that. Sometimes the folks planning the budget aren't necessarily the ones working with the money the following term. And if the EC member is uncertain, well, I know we want to do this project, we were planning it, but I don't know where the money was supposed to come from. We look at the narrative and we can say, that's what the planners were thinking. And so here's where we should take those funds. So it really is critical to keeping sections finances running smoothly. It helps you, it helps your future executive committee members, and it helps us. So cannot emphasize that enough. Number 4, allow an account for flexibility in the budget narrative relative to your fund balance. So if you have a very relatively small fund balance, and oftentimes a smaller section might have a smaller fund balance, there may not be as much room to pad your budget a little bit. But if you have a little more and you are not sure of all of the things that you might want to do in the coming year, you have some ideas, but you don't know, I'm going to need exactly, 300 for this and exactly 200 for this. Go ahead and put a little bit more in so that you have that flexibility as you're finalizing your plans during the term year. That said, you don't want to put too much in. You don't want to pad it too much, because if you're always budgeting significantly over what you actually spend, the history is not very close to reality. And so then you might be going back and looking at previous budgets and thinking, okay, we need to plan this much for the coming year, but it's not actually reflecting what the section did. So it can get a little bit, I guess, convoluted, but it can be a little bit confusing, especially for us. It might end up showing that you're going into a deficit in your budget, even though your fund balance isn't in the deficit, because if you're over budgeting too much, that can confuse things. So allow some flexibility if you can, but try to keep it to a reasonable amount so that it's not showing a completely different picture of reality. And then also remember that when you are planning for your budgets for next year, the current fund balance that's reflected on your worksheet is based on the end of this past February. So there's still a number of expenses that if you are following your budget year, you probably have not already incurred. So think about, you might see, well, we didn't spend very much on this. We're only going to, budget this amount for next year. But what you're seeing in that current account balance is only what you spent as of the end of February. So you may be planning to spend, say 5,000 more before the end of this fiscal year. It's not showing up yet. So just think about what you're seeing as your current fund balance is only your current fund balance based on February. It does not account for what you will spend for the remainder of this fiscal year. So just try to keep that in mind, and think about, well, what else are we going to be spending the money on? Calculate that in. And also just so you know that, when we review your first budget draft, we do try to notice things like this, account for it, try to flag it if you need suggestions and tips. So hopefully we will notice some of these things if there is confusion. Also, you're very welcome to contact us along the way as you're doing the planning. We're very happy to take questions and help you in that process. Okay, next slide. Okay, here is a sample budget worksheet, and showing you this partly because it's a different look than we've had for the past few years. So I just wanted to talk you through it a little bit so you're not too surprised, and that you can also ask questions if you see anything that looks a little confusing. So you might notice, if you're used to this form, that the format is flipped a bit. So before we had left to right, we had the ascending years, and then we had the comments and the section narrative on the right-hand side. This is flipped the opposite way so that we have narrative first, then the WSBA comments column, and then we have the budget year that we're planning, followed by past years. So the column that you're going to be filling in is this FY 2025 budget. Thank you, whoever has the pointer, that's really helpful. So those are the columns that you're going to be filling in. The columns to the right show you the budget that you proposed for this current fiscal year and what the actuals are to date. So here is the column that I was mentioning that is only as of the end of February. So the 2024 actuals is only representing what you've spent as of the end of February. So that's the column to keep track of and realize that's not going to be your final FY24 actuals. But then we do have final actuals for 2023, 2022, and so forth. And those are there for your reference as you're trying to determine what you might need. So the section narrative, that's where we encourage you to write comments about what you will be doing, what you plan to do, even if it's a little bit open, you know, we plan to do some dinners, or we plan to do a dinner. We want to increase our law student outreach. Even if you don't know exactly how to do that, you can just say that's what you're planning to do, and then you propose your expenses. WSBA comments, that's where we'll put our comments after we receive your first draft and we've reviewed it. We'll put comments there that you can hopefully apply when you're doing your final draft. So in this upper left-hand corner with the yellow enter numbers below, let me explain that. The planned number of members, that is what you expect to have as your total membership for the coming membership year. Now, in this case, it will be the calendar year of 2025, because that's how we do our member years along the calendar year. So you can put in what you expect that number to be, and then your planned FY 2025, and actually that should be, apologies, that should be your 2025 dues rate, not your FY 25. So the planned dues rate for the 2025 member year. And if you want to change your member dues amount, there's a separate sheet that you will fill in to let us know that you're planning on changing that amount, whether you want to go up or down from what your current amount is. If you don't have any intention of changing your dues amount, you do not need to submit that form. For the per member charge, I think that's row 8. That number, we put that in as a placeholder. That is this year's current PMC, the per member charge. That gets evaluated and determined again every year. So each year that's something that is reconsidered and determined. So that will not be ready until May 31st. So for the time being, as you're starting to plan, we're putting in the 1873, which is this current year's amount, as the placeholder. When it comes out on May 31st, we'll let you know. You can either enter that amount yourself, or you can just keep the placeholder there. And then when we return your first draft with our comments, we'll submit the new PMC. So that's up to you. That's your option, but that is the amount that you can use and get started with. Okay.
Hey, Carolyn,
Yes.
can I add a little bit to
Sure.
that? So the per member charge is the administrative costs that are charged back to the section for administering, administering the sections. It's a calculation that's done every year. The reason why it's not going to be available until May 31st is it has to go to the Budget and Audit Committee, which is a committee of the Board of Governors. And so they actually approve that charge every year. So it's on slate, it's on the agenda for the May 31st, I think it's the 31st, when it's going to Budget and Audit, to be evaluated and approved. So once Budget and Audit actually approves it, then we'll communicate the actual PMC out to all of you. But that's why we're starting just with, in the initial draft, we're just using the PMC from last year until we get the Budget and Audit approval of the current PMC on May 31st.
Thank you, Kevin.
Carolyn, can I also chime in just a little bit here
Absolutely.
too? So why do we have this separate box here? I think, and it'll be explained in your materials, but what the nice thing is if you do enter how many section members you plan to have for 2025 and how much you plan to charge those folks, once you enter in those numbers in this box, it will automatically populate this column in the respective areas. So section dues revenue, for example, will automatically calculate the two numbers you put in here, so you don't have to do that yourself. And then the per member charge expense will automatically calculate here based on how many section members you have and the PMC placeholder, at least for the first draft. So this box is very important because it will do automatic calculations for you within your worksheet for the respective account lines.
Thank you. That is actually quite helpful. And the last piece I wanted to say about the worksheet is that if you'll notice down at the bottom, there are two tabs. The current tab is the budget tab. The accounts tab, and this is just a screenshot, so we can't bring it up, but the accounts tab lists all of our codes. If you see in the column, yes, that's great. So each of our categories has a code, and you are most likely not using all of the codes. Actually, I can guarantee you're not using all of the codes that we actually have, but you're probably using the ones that you've generally used for the last few years. If you are thinking of a new type of project, or you want to look and see what are the options for categorizing the activities and expenses that we think will be incurring, you can click on that tab and that will list all of the account options. So for example, if you have not done a scholarship before, you've not offered a scholarship before, but you want to do so now, you probably don't have the scholarship category already listed on your worksheet. So you would go to the accounts tab, you would look up what that scholarship code is and what that title of the category is, and then you're able to add that to your worksheet. And there are instructions in the memo, the materials that you'll be getting that will tell you exactly how to add that. So if there is not a category there that you think covers what you are planning, go ahead and look at that accounts tab and see if there's an option that is more suitable or that fits your idea. Okay, and then next slide, and I think Shanti is going to be talking through this lower portion of the worksheet.
Thanks, Carolyn. So I'm back here to talk about CLE specific activities that the section may plan with in partnership with WSBA. So again, if you do formally partner with WSBA CLE on these full half and multi-day events, they'll fall under the CLE section CLE fiscal policy. These programs are delivered live and made available on demand, and we track revenues over a 3-year sales cycle. So if we do anticipate that the section will receive a split or a share of the net revenue that's based on estimated revenues in fiscal year 25, we've noted that in your section worksheet up at the top on that previous slide. We don't need to go back a slide necessarily, but there is a line item specifically for section splits and shares of net revenue up at the top. There you go. Thank you. And then again, specific to this little call out box at the bottom lower right or the bottom of your worksheet, we're asking that if you do plan to partner with WSBA CLE in fiscal year 25, to please note your plans in that yellow box. This is helpful for us to know what we're anticipating working with you and supporting you as a section on, and then reconciling any other additional expenses and budgets on our end. I wanted to take a minute to just speak to budgeting for CLE specifically and some things you might want to consider. For your full day, half day, and multi-day CLEs, you don't need to necessarily budget for the standard expenses in your section budget. Those will be covered on the WSBA CLE end. So things like facilities, your refreshments at break, volunteer speaker reimbursements for travel, those are allocated on the WSBA CLE end. However, you will want to budget for any additional activities and expenses related to the sale. Some sections may want to do a dinner associated with the event or additional reception. So those things will be items that you'll want to consider budgeting for in your section budget. And then finally, for mini CLEs, if you do plan and want to budget for those expenses will need to be itemized and planned for in your section budget. And what I mean by itemized is just allocated in your expenses in your worksheet. So those are just some things to keep in mind. Again, CLEs have come up a couple times already today and are a huge effort that many sections do participate in. So if you have any questions about planning for those or how to budget, please let me know.
Thank you, Shanti. Next slide. Okay, so we have list of contacts. If you have any questions, we're going to take time for some questions now if you have any. And then also, of course, at any time in this process, please feel free to reach out. You can contact section budgets, which will get either Noah or me, or you can call me directly at this phone number. You can also contact Shanti, and then both Maggie, you and Darshita Patel, who's our senior accountant and budget analyst, they can help you with specific questions as well. So please do take advantage of this resource. So do we have any questions for Maggie, Shanti, myself, Kevin, Julianne, anyone?
Don't see any hands or anything in the chat. I know that's a lot of information to process. So as Carolyn mentioned, materials will be sent out for this meeting in the near future. And then of course, just be on the lookout April 15th for those budget information, worksheets, forms, etc. And we will always be happy to answer any questions as they arise.
And I think it was on the timeline, but just a reminder too, we will have one official budget drop-in session on May 1st. I believe that's at noon. And that's a great time to just come with whatever questions you have at, whatever part of the planning process you are in. So that's at a more, official scheduled drop-in. Sometimes folks come and just listen to the questions that other section leaders have, and it helps them to hear those answers. They might not know exactly what to ask, but just hearing what other people's questions are can be helpful. So if you feel like you're in that situation, please, by all means, come. You don't have to ask questions. You can just be a fly on the wall, so to speak. And then again, of course, any other time, if you're less comfortable in that setting, but you'd like to reach out by phone or video chat with me or the others on this list, please do contact us. Okay. Thank
Carolyn,
you.
yeah, I'll add, just to sort of close this session out, you're probably going to have questions once you start digging into the budget and the details is when you're probably going to run into your questions. So I just keep this contact sheet handy, but Carolyn, probably if they've got, if they're having trouble figuring out who to contact first on this list, I'm assuming their first place to contact is probably the section team's contact, right?
Correct. Thank you for clarifying
if you need to refer them to Shanti or Maggie or whoever, then you could, but probably your best bet is to keep this sections team contact handy when you start working through the details, and just reach out there, and Carolyn can probably answer a great deal of your questions.
And actually, yes, the section budget materials will be coming from that email address. So you can even just, reply to that. You'll have that handy once we send those materials out next Monday. Great. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, next slide. So we are now in the new member engagement, why and how portion of the program. And I'm going to hand it off to Shell Gigax, who's our Member Services and Engagement Administrative Assistant, which is a mouthful. And Shell's going to kick us off.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carolyn. Hi, and welcome everybody. It is so great to see such a large group today. So thank you all for joining us. And we are just going to go over exactly what Carolyn said, new member engagement, why and how, and kind of how to build that into your section. So Noah, can I get the next slide, please? Awesome. So we're just going to kick it off here with some section membership trends. The graph here shows section membership trends over the past 10 years. And I will point out that 2024 is year to date, not the full year. So it may seem a little low, but the teal color there is going to be the overall section membership numbers in total for the year. And then the top portion in the yellow is the number of young lawyer section memberships for that year. So the one thing that we just wanted to point out with this is that, you know, and of course, correlation, not causation, but the larger number of young lawyer memberships, the larger number of overall memberships our sections have seen in the past 10 years. So it really is important to kind of build that section membership from the ground up and start recruiting and involving new and young lawyers early on in section membership, as well as their membership with the bar in their careers. Next slide, please. So different ways that we have to engage with new members. So there's several opportunities for new member engagement, and I'll go into detail on these in the following slides, but I wanted to point out some of the larger programs, and that includes our Washington Young Lawyers Committee, our Young Lawyer Liaison to Sections program, practice primers, trial advocacy program, and various different mentorship programs and events. Next slide, please. So the Washington Young Lawyers Committee is a group of lawyers, small committee that shares an interest in programs, benefits, and issues that are facing new and young lawyers. So they meet bi-monthly on Saturdays. Some of those are a virtual only, and some of those are in person. We are trying to build that in-person component of the WYLC and have a larger presence there. And as far as, you know, partnerships and collaborations, how does the WYLC fit into, you know, sections? So the WYLC offers a few collaboration opportunities, such as the WYLC's Financial Focus CLE. We've partnered with some sections in the past on that. And then they are also currently focusing on things like recruitment and outreach and how to build their committee, bylaws and governance, which is they are proposing some changes that will affect the definition of young lawyer, and then debt and student loans. So those are some of their current project scopes. And then they also administer what is called the Public Service Leadership Award. And this particular award highlights the work of new and young lawyers in community leaders who are making a difference through public service. So this award is something that recipients need to be nominated for by someone else. So if you have somebody in your section who's a new and young lawyer that is, you know, going above and beyond and succeeding, I would definitely recommend looking into the PSLA for them as well. Next slide, Noah. All right, so that brings us to the Young Lawyer Liaison to Sections program, or YLL. This is probably going to be the bulk of what we're talking about today. So we are getting ready to kick off this program, and you'll get more information on that via email tomorrow. But the Young Lawyer Liaison to Sections program is, participants of a voluntary program that creates opportunities to strengthen the connection between WSBA sections and new and young lawyers of the legal community. So I strongly feel like this program offers a direct connection between new and young lawyers and your section. It gives you an opportunity to have a new and young lawyer on your executive committee who is there to kind of offer insight into what is going on in the world and what they're experiencing. We've had lots of our young lawyer liaisons continue on into additional leadership roles, including executive committee seats, chairs, and even board of governor members. And as I mentioned, we will be kicking this off shortly, so you'll be receiving more information on that tomorrow via email. But I wanted to take a quick moment because I know that we have some sections and some YLLs in attendance today to just kind of share their experience as executive committees that have a YLL in place, as well as just YLLs in particular. So who do I have here? I think Rachel?
Yes. Hi, my name's
Awesome.
Rachel Sensheimer. I'm the Young Lawyer Liaison for the Environmental Law and Land Use section. I'm coming up on my second year doing it. I was just asked to highlight a couple things that we do. So we have two big events that are our law student and young lawyer events. The first is, well, I'll actually start with the second of the year, which is the one we just had last week. It's a mixer at Optimism Brewing, or it's now called Stoop Brewing. We had 50 people come out last week. It was a dead even split, 25 law students, 25 lawyers at the last count. I'm still entering things onto a spreadsheet. But we pay for catering, and we usually get at least one or two sponsors from the section. This year it was McCullough Hill. And we just kind of have a very informal networking event. Oftentimes students end up getting either jobs or internships out of this. Like, the law firms come prepared to sort of start that connection. So it gets the students really excited to come. And it's been great. We had everyone from, the law students, 1Ls, first year associates through partners, and sort of everyone in between. And then this past year, we started doing another networking event in the fall, which is, that was at the request of students to do a more formal networking event. This past year, we hosted it at Perkins Coie. We have about 15 members of the bar come, and the students can go around and just do like formal networking. We give them 8 minutes at speed networking. Also, food and drinks provided. So the way that I ended up on the Young Lawyers Liaison was I was reached out to by the current Young Lawyer Liaison when I was the head of environmental law, whatever, at UW. I was on a bunch of the boards there. So they just kind of grabbed me. I did the same thing for who we expect to be the next Young Lawyer Liaison. So just like through informal networking. A problem we have run into, though, is so my firm does not have a bar. Like, I count all of this towards my billables. And there's no cap to that. And we have had trouble getting people who are first year associates with, huge billables to commit this much time, because it's not a small hourly commitment. Yeah, that's that.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. And I know we have a couple of others. The next person I see on camera is you, Devin. Do you want to share a couple of quick insights about your term as the YLL with admin law?
Yeah, so my name is Devin Curta. I'm the YL for the admin law section. I'm over in Spokane, and I think it's a great on-ramp for section committee leadership because and I was at the AG's office when I started. I just switched jobs a couple months ago, but you're new. I was a practitioner in Idaho, came to Washington, new to the state, and you want to get more involved, and you see these position postings for like treasurer or whatever of some section, and that can be kind of intimidating, especially if you don't know anyone. And so I think the YLL on-ramp of, hey, join the sections. It's a 2-year commitment. And then obviously, I think most people have a wonderful time on their section and want to keep on being involved with leadership. So I definitely think it's a great way to kind of, as the slide says, start your journey. I'm over in Eastern Washington, and that certainly poses challenges with, there is no time zone difference, even though sometimes people think there is. We're same time as Seattle. But that does pose a challenge in terms of just physical events and presence and boots on the ground. So haven't figured it out yet. If I did, I'd probably be retired. But that certainly is it is a challenge, as we have a law school here with Gonzaga, which is great. And I think, Gonzaga has the same problem just in general with outreach to the other side of the state. But I think the more members you get from your section, I think the Gonzaga this year is like 200 1Ls or something. So, I mean, it's getting bigger each year. And so that's a lot of new lawyers coming in and practicing in Eastern Washington. And so I hope in the next couple of years, my sense is there'll be more practitioners here to maybe fill kind of those YLL roles.
Awesome. Thank you, Devin. And then I know that I have Anastasia Blakely, our YLL from juvenile law, and I am very excited to hear what she has to share.
Thanks. Yeah, so I am in my first full term being the Young Lawyer Liaison. And the thing that I've really enjoyed is that it seems like it's a really good position for me to come up with the projects that I'm interested in, and have the ability to have the support of the larger section, but to really just kind of fiddle around and see what I think my strengths are and what I can bring to the group. And be able to, ask the specific people on the board, does this work? Do you like that? Does this make sense? And, I sent out a survey when I came up with my first idea and got about 10% of our section to respond. So for a small section, I felt like that was a pretty good response. And I think in working in conjunction with my section's goals that they have stated, during the meetings, that's something that I appreciate that they have, that we want to start maybe a mentorship or a mentoring program between, older attorney or more experienced attorneys and younger attorneys, less experienced, and particularly trying to get law students to sort of be a feeder into being our next Young Lawyer Liaison, or just having events where we can involve, people who aren't even quite attorneys yet. And I think that that opportunity to be able to build programs in my own little department is a good lead into, as was mentioned before, into being a leader in long term for this section, once this expires. And I think that having that option and sort of having that freedom has put me in a position where now it's not just, oh, I'm not just going to do what they told me to. I have to come up with my own project. And that has been just like a nice side project from my actual practice to be able to come up with something and be creative.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then I have our Martha Welling from our ELUL section, Environmental Land Use Law, to share from an executive committee member's standpoint. Martha?
Yeah, Rachel did a really great job summarizing kind of the two hugest projects that she and our prior YLLs worked on. But one way that they work directly with the executive committee members, although the enthusiasm and energy of our young lawyer liaisons means that they kind of carry the bulk of that work, has been in law clerk scholarships. So we offer scholarships in the summer. We have people apply, and then the young lawyer liaison does that outreach, kind of monitors the applications, does communication with them during the summer, and then does a follow-up on their experience to see what that was like. And I think that's really great engagement and opportunities for the law students. And another thing we've done is a writing competition where law students generally who are writing an article for like a law review submit those to us for a competition and a monetary award. And we weren't able to do that this year because of the budget, but we did it last year. And our young lawyer liaison, which was Rachel last year, and a member of the executive committee kind of took the lead on working on that together. One of the things in the ELUL in my time on it is that we have been very fortunate to have had 3 very engaged young lawyer liaisons who started as liaisons and then moved into the executive committee. And so that was Carolyn Kress, who's here today as well. And so probably has some better insights than me into that transition from young lawyer liaison to executive committee. And then Gabby Gurian and then Rachel, who we hope will move into the executive committee when her current term as young lawyer liaison expires. And that provides this ongoing engagement with law students to have executive committee members who formerly were young lawyer liaisons and did all that outreach, have all those networks, have all those contacts, and make sure that we as a section don't lose that commitment to working with the law students and staying engaged with them and making that one of our priorities as the section in providing those different opportunities for the students. So I feel very fortunate that in my time as chair, I've got Carolyn, Rachel, and Gabby like doing this incredible amount of energy and outreach and really keeping the section active and going and getting those young lawyers and the law students engaged.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Martha. That is some of the best insight that I could have hoped for. I really love the Young Lawyer Liaison to Sections program, and I love that it just helps kind of build that connection between young lawyers and sections kind of from the ground up. And I love that you're also involving law students and kind of just pushing the envelope further. So that's amazing. The Young Lawyer Liaison to Sections program really is what you make of it for each individual section that is participating. We will be sending out the sections checklist, which is what you will use to kind of build your volunteer position description for the liaison. And there are a number of, suggested duties or priorities for the YLL that you can pick and choose from. So it's certainly not something where you have to choose all of them. You could choose what is particular to your section, what is important to your section, and what you think is going to really help your section grow and kind of build off of that. And if you want to kind of lessen the time commitment, as Rachel mentioned, it is a big commitment of time. And that can be adjusted really by choosing those different duties, as you will see on that checklist that's sent out tomorrow. And that will go out to all of the sections that are eligible to to participate in the program for this upcoming recruiting cycle. Next slide, please. Thank you. Some additional ways to connect with new members and engage would be our new member education. And so practice primers are one of the big ones there. So the practice primers take a substantive area of law and develop into a series of learning tracks. It's usually 3 tracks, takes over the course of about a month or so, I think maybe a little bit longer. And then that is part of our new member education, which is going to be offered at the new member pricing range too, which is always a big bonus for new and young lawyers. Similar with the trial advocacy program, which we are in the middle of planning and putting on now. The trial advocacy program is a 2-day skills training from seasonal trial lawyers, and then a 1-day mock trial that'll take place later in May of this year. And this is going to give an opportunity for attorneys working in criminal or civil arenas to become effective trial lawyers. And we also offer a scholarship for the trial advocacy program as well, in addition to new member pricing on that one as well for the CLE components. Next
Hey,
slide, please.
Shel,
Yes, Kevin.
Caroline had her hand up.
Oh, I am so sorry. I did not see that. Caroline?
Hey, sorry, I just wanted to pipe in.
Yeah, absolutely.
The section that I was invited to speak during.
Yes, I'm so sorry about that. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so I was the Young Lawyer Liaison to the ELUL section for 4 years, leading right into the pandemic. And I'll just offer, I guess, a couple of other things that haven't been mentioned yet. But one is that I think having your Young Lawyer Liaison then stay on and join the executive committee is a great thing when you're able to do that. When I joined in 2016, we did not have a liaison from the prior year to, give me any kind of advice or kind of set me up for what to do. And so I kind of just made the role what I wanted it to be at the time. And I feel like I could have done more in that first year if I had kind of more to start with. But I think we've done a really good job of creating some institutional knowledge and then being able to really build out our programming instead of having to reinvent the wheel every year on like, how do you do a networking event? I will also share some things that we did during the pandemic. We trying to kind of get creative and meet law students and young lawyers where they were at the time. We reached out to our membership and asked for folks to send in advice and basically like best practices or tips or words of encouragement, essentially, for young lawyers and law students to kind of give them a sense of like, we know this is an extraordinary time, but it's going to be okay. And, you know, here's our advice for how to get through it and how to do a job search when everything's remote and all that kind of stuff. And we got some really good feedback about how that was received. We also partnered with the civil rights section during the pandemic to do a virtual networking event that we kind of used themes from both of our sections, the civil rights work and the environmental work, and did an environmental justice themed event, which was really a great way to kind of expand the students and the attorneys that we were reaching through that. And then one final thing real quick, just to touch on what Rachel mentioned in terms of time commitment. It is especially if you are, you know, organizing events, that stuff takes a lot more time than you think of, especially when you're not an event planner and you're an attorney and you're kind of like putting on a new hat. And I will flag that for those of us at the AG's office and probably most folks in government service, we have a policy where we are not allowed to build that time unless we are specifically asked to serve by our boss. And so we cannot actually count that time towards our work hours. And so it is more of a burden when you're reaching out to, I think, those in public agencies and asking them to commit that amount of time. So that's something to be aware of.
Thank you so much, Caroline. And I'm so sorry that I missed over seeing your hand up there. Those are amazing, amazing points. And I do want to stress that this year, as far as recruiting for the Young Lawyer Liaison to sections, we are introducing a couple of new things. We will be doing exit surveys for Young Lawyer Liaisons that are vacating their current seats and finishing their terms. And then we will also be introducing a drop-in info session for executive committee members or anybody that is interested in learning more about the program. That way we can help guide and kind of follow along with the program with you. So as Carolyn mentioned, sometimes there is, nobody that's preceding you in that role, and that can be really hard to kind of build that program when you don't have a predecessor. So if that is a situation for your section, please do not be scared. Carolyn and I and Noah are more than happy to meet with you and discuss whatever may need to be discussed or however we can help in making that a smooth transition and recruitment for you and making that position work best for your section. One more, Noah. Thank you. So that brings us to WISBA mentorship. So we have lots of different mentorship opportunities and events that can be beneficial to your section. So our mentorship program toolkit, we've had a couple of people mention that they have done mentorship programs with their section. I believe it's taxation has a fairly robust mentorship program that they are doing. Administrative law and health sections have all done program consultations with us. And this is to help develop an MCLE accredited or non-accredited program by your choice, where you can pair seasoned attorneys with someone looking for a mentor, and you would have the option to apply for MCLE credit, which I think is pretty fantastic. Our mentorship curriculum, so this curriculum guide and worksheets offer best practices, coaching tips, and training to support and strengthen your mentorship program. There's several different curriculum pieces there, and those are available on our website. I would definitely recommend, even if you're not looking to implement a program or create a program, just browsing through those and seeing kind of what's there and what's available. We also have a searchable list of mentorship programs that is maintained by us here at WISBA. And that's going to include mentorship programs that are at different bar associations, minority bar associations, and things of that nature. And then one of my favorite programs and events that we put on is our MentorLink Mixers. So these are virtual events. They are free to attend, and they're open to anyone. So law school, law students, public attendees, WISBA members, all of the above. These are a great partnership opportunity for sections. We recently were proposing to plan a business law mixer, and unfortunately we've had to put a pause on that and postpone that one for now. So that one is still to be determined. And then in September, we are looking to host a Mentor Link Mixer on artificial intelligence in law, which is a pretty big and up and coming topic these days. And then we just have some additional resources available online as well regarding mentorship. And all of these blue sections here are all clickable links for you once you receive the slides at the end of today's meeting. So, and that is all I have. So I will go ahead and open up for questions or comments. All right, so not hearing anything, not seeing anything in the chat. If you have any questions or comments or just need to reach out and chat, please feel free. My contact information is on the screen there. It's michelleg@wisba.org, and then phone number. And you can also send emails to the new members at wisba.org for anything pertaining to mentorship, young lawyer liaison to sections, or anything else we've covered today. So thank you all. Oh, Carolyn, I think you're on mute.
This is not my day for that. Thank you so much, Shell. I just want to reiterate that Shell is a really wonderful resource for any of the programs that she introduced today. So please do reach out to her if you have questions and you're wanting to utilize any of those programs or further them for your section. So moving on to executive committee retreats, what and why? Next slide, please. So a number of our sections currently do hold an annual executive committee retreat, but a number of the sections do not. And you might not even know that it's something that sections do. So this part of the presentation is just an introduction of what a retreat is, why you might want to introduce one to your section, and the different kinds of formats and the value and the purpose of having a retreat if it's something that you choose to work into your budget and your programming. So what is an EC retreat? It's a gathering of the executive committee outside of your regular meeting times. And regular meeting times vary from section to section. Some of them are monthly, some of them are quarterly, some of them are bi-monthly. But the retreat is a time that's designed for a specific purpose. It's outside of these regular meeting times, and it really can be whatever you fashion it to be. So you choose the focus, but it's usually not just another executive committee meeting. There's usually a purpose, specific purpose or purposes for why you want to create that dedicated time. Retreats can be half day, whole day, multi-day. It really varies across the board, and it, whatever you think works. The constraints or considerations might be your budget, might be the location of your members, whether you have, a firm that's willing to offer up their office space for a program, whether you can have the funds to support a whole day or multi-day event, and if your members are willing to travel, and if you can support that travel. So that might determine what your meeting time would look like. There also, you can do them remotely. If you have a smaller budget, that might be the way to start, just to have a dedicated 2 or 3 hour chunk of remote engagement. In person seems to be a really good way to make those connections and have that dedicated time where, I know it can be hard on Zoom to really give a meeting your whole focus. I think we're all kind of guilty of being distracted while we're on Zoom. And so an in-person meeting is really a time to create that dedicated space and focus. But it's good in this day and age to be able to offer that hybrid option for folks who might not be able to make it, to still have everyone included if that works. And again, your venue can be an office. You could have it at the WISBA offices, a restaurant, a hotel, a resort. All of those are different options that sections have used. And it provides an opportunity for more in-depth focus and attention to any number of issues, ideas, topics, that type of thing. Next slide, please. Okay, so why do it? What's the purpose? What are the benefits that you might get for your executive committee? So a retreat allows extended time for brainstorming, focused discussion, strategic planning, things that you might not be able to cover in 50-minute to an hour-long meeting when you're in the middle of your workday and you just manage to slide in, or while you're eating your lunch. This is a time to really dig in to your section planning and activities. It's also an opportunity to look at your big picture planning. So sometimes you're just thinking what's happening next month, what's happening in the next 3 months. But this is an opportunity, if you choose, to really look at that kind of strategic, where do we want to be 2 years from now? Where do we want to be? You know, it's hard to plan too far ahead because executive committees turn over and, you know, you don't always have the same personnel year after year, but you can always provide, you know, this was our strategic plan, provide that to the upcoming chair, to the next committee. Here's what we would like to be doing, or here's where we'd like to be, here's where we're going to focus the coming year. But maybe, you know, get a bigger picture idea for where your section is going. It can be an opportunity for just focusing on the social connection and networking. You know, why did you, it's often a reason that people join the executive committees as volunteers is because you want to have that opportunity to network and come together socially and really create those bonds and form the relationships. And that can be hard to do in an hour-long meeting over Zoom. And so this is a really great opportunity to create time for that. It's also a time to have subcommittee breakout groups. Sometimes it might be hard to find time for another meeting outside of the regular, you know, monthly meeting. But here's an opportunity again for some of your subcommittees to have that dedicated time to work and think about your projects. So I believe I have 3 of our current executive committee members here to share with us a little about their section's executive committee retreats, the format that they've chosen, why they do it every year, and what they think the benefits are for their section. So I have Elena Pergastis from Health Law. I have Darcel Lobo from the Solo and Small Practice section. And then I have Devin Kurta, second time today. Thank you, Devin, from the Administrative Law section. And I'll just let one of you jump in, and then we'll take a turn and tell us a little bit about how you run your retreat and how and why.
Thanks, Carolyn. I can go ahead and start if that's okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Maybe appropriate to start with the half-day CLE and kind of go up from there. So I am the chair of the Health Law section executive committee, and right now we are doing half-day CLEs. They are, I guess, fairly abbreviated compared to some other sections. But we, as far as I know, have done this for several years. I've been part of the executive committee for the past 2 terms, so I only have historical experience, firsthand experience of the last 2 years. And I can tell you a little bit about what we do. So we start typically around noon. And what we do is rent out some, or, you know, get some space at a law firm that one of our executive committee members works at. And part of the reason we do that is because it's either a nominal fee or it's completely free. So it's a way to avoid large expenditures. And then, so we start at noon, we do a box lunch that is covered by our WSBA funds that we've allocated to the retreat. And then we kind of walk through some of our goals for the coming year. We talk about what we want the structure of the committee to look like. Do we want to have multiple subcommittees? What are the events that we want to do? We try to do some tentative calendaring, just to try to kind of map out the rest of the year. We also do a little bit of discussion about roles and expectations, and then also some just bonding, you know, just some social and kind of get to know you. Particularly this last term, we had several new members join, so it was nice to kind of you know, hear about people's experience serving on other types of committees and so forth. So that's kind of the bulk of what we do. And then at the end, we had both the past 2 terms, we had a happy hour at the end that the law firms were graciously able to sponsor. And that was just another opportunity to kind of bond and, you know, learn about each other and develop a good rapport that is helpful for the coming term. I just want to say one thing, and I'm sure I'll hear a lot from the other 2 EC members about the different formats of retreats and the more involved formats. But I've recently learned that it's not required to have such a small retreat. I know Carolyn mentioned that some sections don't do it at all. I definitely think there's a big benefit to being able to plan out your year in advance, excuse me. But also, you know, getting to know folks and, like I said, developing that rapport. And I think that having more time than just a half day would be even more beneficial. So I want to caveat everything I've just said and say that we are looking at possibly doing either a full day or even a multi-day, and possibly even with a CLE this coming term. So I hope that's helpful. Carolyn, let me know if I missed anything.
I think that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Elena. Maybe if that might make sense for Darcel to go next with the whole day, and then Devin, your section works in a CLE. So if Darcel, if you're open to that, that would be great.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
So yeah, kind of just echoing what was just said. So we have a full day retreat. I've been on the committee for maybe 5 or 6 years now. I'm the current chair of our section, and we've done an annual retreat since before I was on the committee. And with the retreat, you know, we do ours in person. Through COVID, we did it remotely, but we do them in person. And it's really to bring everyone together and everyone's collaborative experience to the table to all work together. You know, we're on Zoom throughout the year for our meetings. So actually working together in person, I think it brings for, you know, better ideas, better conversations, and really brings everyone to the table enthusiastically about planning for the year. And so with this last retreat we had in January, we really focused on kind of the bigger level, like, you know, WSBA's mission statements, looking at our mission statements, looking at our subcommittee's mission statements, and making sure that these were all in alignment with each other and that we're still fulfilling what we've promised to our members, and that we're actually delivering what we said we would deliver. And then also, as a chair of the section, I really have some, you know, intentions and goals that I want to bring with my chairship that I shared with the EC, and I really asked them to integrate into the programming for this upcoming year. And so we do smaller breakout groups in the day of our subcommittees. We have 3 subcommittees in our section of our EC. We talk about elections, we look at our membership historically and kind of what our goals are for that. We go over budget issues and concerns. We discuss our annual conference that we have every year, which is usually a 2 to 3 day conference that our section has. We look at any kind of BOG updates, any WSBA liaison updates, any updates from our WSBA's practice management advisor. So we really use this full day, and it is kind of exhausting. It's a long day. It's a lot that we go through, but I feel like we achieve so much. And every retreat, I get to know our EC members better. Even though I have served with them maybe for a few years, I still get to know them better. I think it brings about, you know, a better product that we're delivering to our members when we're working together all on the same path towards the same goal. And so that's really what our focus is. And I believe it's been a 1 full day retreat for quite a few years. I don't believe we've ever integrated CLE into our retreat. It's only been focused, you know, on the retreat for the EC and planning for the whole year. And then also planning out all of our meetings. So we meet bi-monthly. And so we schedule all of our meetings for the whole calendar year as well. So our EC can get it on their calendar. And so our section members know when all of our meetings will be as well.
Thank you, Darcel. That was wonderful. Okay, Devin.
Yeah, so Devin Curta here, admin law section. We do and have done for years now a retreat. Typically, it's been an Alderbrook resort over on the west side, and it's technically one night, but most people make it a 2-night weekend event in May. And I think kind of like the previous two speakers said, we have a CLE as well for all members, usually Friday afternoon. And so that's a great way to get people to the area. People come up, a lot of people come from Olympia, some come from Tacoma, and then that's a great way for section members to meet the executive committee, and then also for the executive committee to talk to section members about, potential leadership, things like that. And so that's kind of how Friday afternoon works. But then we have a happy hour, and then the next morning we have our basic executive committee retreat and planning meeting for the year. So very similar to what's been said, goals, budget, plan for CLEs, etc. And that usually goes about 5 or 6 hours. It's like 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then that night, we do kind of like a potluck if possible, or some sort of gathering just informally. There's like cabins as well as Alderbrooks. Usually one member will book a cabin and we kind of all gather there. So it's nice. I think part of it is the inertia of it's happened before, so it's going to happen again. So already, as soon as it'll happen in May, people are already looking at the calendar for next spring to figure out when it can be. And I saw that there was a question about I think a couple of questions are popping up here in the chat. Pay for executive member mileage. So yeah, like for me, it comes from Spokane. So the committee, the section pays for the hotel rooms for the executive committee members, and then they'll reimburse for gas mileage, and that's it. So they won't do the meals or things like that, but they will pay the whatever the WSBA reimbursement is, that like 0.6 cents per mile or whatever. And that's all part of our budget, and something that, because we do it and we plan on it, it's kind of there every year. Let's see, there's another question of how many folks show up to the CLE portion. I'm new in the section, so I can't tell you exactly historically, but I know last year, I want to say maybe 20 to 30 or so folks, I would guess. And I think there was also a Zoom opportunity as well, but it was a Friday afternoon. Alderbrook's kind of hard to get to, but actually, if you live in Olympia, it's really not that bad at all. So, and then we do a lot of CLEs in the admin law section, so that's where a lot of our funding comes from for the year. So I think it's a great opportunity to meet with your committee. As been said before, you're not distracted. We do have obviously call-in options and Zoom options for folks, but it's pretty well attended. Again, it's just kind of a culture shift of you start talking about it early and often, and so then people block it out and come.
Great, thank you so much. So it's just kind of a glimpse of the different approaches to executive committee retreats, and it really is kind of a, whatever size fits. And so just encouraging you to think about that if it's not something you already do. Next slide, please. So I have some planning tips for you, and I'm going to go through a bit quickly so that we can stay on schedule. But again, if there's anything on here that you think, oh, I'd really like to know more about that, or pick Carolyn's brain, or I could maybe, refer you to one of our executive committee members who presented, that would be, great as well. So I'll just kind of jump through these. Plan thoroughly and communicate the purpose of your retreat to the executive committee members well in advance, so that folks can plan to be there and know why. Why are you there, and that it's important, and put it in their calendar. Share an event agenda in advance. Put it on the calendar early so your members can prioritize it in their schedule for the year. Consider a location that is amenable to all of your EC members, whether that just means that you are budgeting for travel allowance, or if folks saying, I just am not going to be able to make that. I can't, it's too far, I've got family commitments, whatever. Really kind of take that, maybe do a little survey with your members and find out what's going to work for folks. Adapt the retreat to what your section's budget will allow, but I'm sure that you can find something that your budget will allow if you're willing to be flexible. Sections with smaller fund balances may need to start with a virtual program or donated office space, and maybe just focus on your strategic planning to how are you going to build your membership and build your fund balance. Consider having a designated facilitator, possibly an outside facilitator or someone else in the group. Maybe not the chair, maybe give vice chair, chair-elect a moment to step up to leadership and shine a little bit if that's an option. Determine your focus, especially with a shorter format. We talked about the possible benefits. Think about maybe just one or two of those that you want the focus to be on your retreat if it's a shorter program. Consider asking firms for sponsorship if you're looking for things that WISBA can't pay for, i.e. alcohol. I know Elena shared that they have a little happy hour at the end that's sponsored by one of the firms. And so think ahead, is there a firm that might, appreciate the work that you do for your section and be willing to give you a small sponsorship? So those are just some tips to think about. And again, this will be part of your materials that you'll get after today's program. So if you want to refer to it again. And I'm going to move us along so we can fit everything in. The next section is sections team updates. And I'm going to hand this over to Noah again.
Hello again. All right, so we're going to run through these really quickly. Elections update. I want to talk a little bit about elections and the timeline and some important election notes. Really important, April 15th is when the vast majority of sections portals close for applicants. This is something to keep in mind if your section has not had a swath of applicants come in yet, but we'll get to that in a second. May 13th is when the form from your nominating committee turning in your candidate slate form is due. Basically, on the 15th, when your portal closes, all of your nominating committees will be receiving instructions, including a link to this form, which will allow them to submit their candidate or your section's candidate slate. The ballots will be approved or must be approved by May 28th by the section contact that you put in the form for the candidate slate. And we need them by the 28th, but because we have to get those ballots set up for the automatic send to your section members. Finally, your results will be sent to you that first week of July, which is when we then recommend that you send out emails or call your newly elected section executive committee members and let them know. And then we will be posting those results on your individual web pages probably around the third week of July. Some important election notes. Those interested in having partaking in another term for a section or for a term for a position they already have will need to apply on the portal. Right now, it is super important for your executive committees to be reaching out, looking for new applicants, and the best ways to do this is through your section listserv, through your personal and professional networks, and social media. These are all great ways for you to reach out to your section members and say, hey, we have these open positions. We'd really like you to apply for these. Or maybe you're interested in them. Ask us some questions about them. Invite them to one of your section executive committee meetings. Lastly, if you have not had many applicants, if your attempts to get people to apply, to reach out to people are not being as successful, you may consider extending your application portal deadline. And the big thing about that is just talk to us about it, Carolyn and I, and we'll definitely go forward with that, or we'll definitely talk with you about that and the ways that could work. So next slide, please. All right, I'm going to go super quick through this. Info sheets for your sections have now been uploaded to each of your websites. It's where that little red circle is. It's called the Year in Review. If you want to go check that out, it's just a single page info sheet that you can use for publicity or for member recruitment. They're really great. Each section has their own. So the next slide, I'm just going to go through this super fast. This is what it looks like. The top section is description. We got accomplishments, highlights, demographics, financials. Like I said, these are fantastic tools for recruiting members, for publicly talking about what your section does, for explaining what it is that you hope to do in the future by showing what you've done so far. The one thing I want to note about this is we get the information for this from several things, including your section bylaws, your financial reports, your annual report, and the WSBA demographics report. And the problem is when you send in your annual report, if it's very sparse, we have a difficulty fleshing these out. So you want to make sure that you really fill out those annual reports to reflect what your section is doing so we can help create this a more robust info sheet for you. Next slide. Really quick, I have created a new system for how we're checking your web pages. I'm going to do quarterly audits, which are basically just going to be me checking all the links, checking all the dates, making sure all of the events that are on there are current and not past events. We want them to be as fresh and useful as possible. Now, however, we're going to do once yearly, or I'm going to do once yearly updates, which, like many of you worked with me last August and September, and we did some really great changes. Taxation had some wonderful recommendations, and we really built and fleshed out their website. I worked with many sections on this, but there's several of you that I have not heard from, and I'm more than happy to help you and work with you to help build your web page into something that you really want it to be, to help members, to help your executive committee, things like that. So that will be coming up again this year in August, September. Next slide.
Okay, thank you, Noah. So we are having another noon discussion series program. We're planning ahead for June 26th at noon. We talked today about new member engagement and the Young Lawyer Liaison to Sections program. This noon discussion series will be more in-depth covering of how to engage with your Young Lawyer Liaison, how to really utilize that program, make it more robust, and really take in that individual's insight and perspective and put their talent to use. So look forward to that. That's June 26th. Put on your calendars. And then next slide, please. We have Paris Erickson here. Paris is our volunteer engagement advisor to give us a quick update on the WSBA community project.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone, and I will be quick. This is going to ask you to think a little bit back, but I know that there was some information that was shared with you all regarding a pilot project that we're doing called WSBA Community. It's designed to support our volunteer work through communities or platforms where the work can be centralized. Next slide, because I am trying to be quick for you. So this is a time-limited project, and the overall goal is to determine if this tool is helpful and is a value add for our volunteers and for staff as well. So if during this discovery phase, you know, the results of kind of our assessment of this pilot are positive, you know, we'll look towards using the tool permanently and expanding its use to our entire volunteer community, or possibly even all of our WSBA members in the future. Next slide. Our pilot participants, this is a list of the groups that are participating in the pilot. I want to thank in particular, of course, our section executive committees that are participating. That's the Indian Law Section Executive Committee, RPPT Section Executive Committee, and Senior Lawyers Section Executive Committee. The update is that the pilot project has been extended to June 2025. So we will have a full year use of the pilot. And then around spring 2025 is when we'll be conducting our assessment and determining whether or not we'll be using the tool or something similar or heading in a different direction. You know, we'll make that determination at that time. I think that's all I'll share. I don't know if you have anything specific for me that I can answer. But thank you.
Thank you so much, Paris. Okay, so I think we're down to the end, and I know it's the moment that everyone has been waiting for. It's time to draw our door prize winners. We will have two winners, and I'm gonna throw it back to Noah.
All right, so our winners are going to be, excuse me, we have Anastasia Blakely and Michael Harris.
Wonderful.
You're going to be getting a book about habits that are, and there's some interesting ideas behind like different leadership types. And I believe there's it's a newer version of the book which has a detailed section on AI and how it's being used. So we also have this wonderful booklet that we're going to be sending to you both. I'll be sending an email to you both and getting your details so we can get those sent to you.
Hey, thank you so much. Congratulations, Anastasia and Michael, and really appreciate your time today. I think it's been a really wonderful 2 hours. We've had a lot of wonderful participation from our current section leaders, and I think that's just the dedication and energy that you put into your programs. It shows, and we really, really appreciate all of the work you do and the time that you give. We understand that volunteering is just one piece of your lives and what you do, and I'm really, really thankful that you've chosen to spend part of your precious time serving the organization and your members. So we will be following up with our materials, and just stay tuned for that. We'll post the video on the volunteer toolbox and also be following up with a survey. I will share that we don't usually get a lot of responses to the survey, and that pains us because we really want to know what is helpful to you. And we want to, adapt these programs to be useful, valuable to the volunteers. And so if you have a moment, and let's say, 2 minutes that you can spend to give us feedback on the program, we would really, really appreciate it. So again, thank you so much. We're getting you out of here just under the buzzer. So again, any questions that you might have, feel free to drop us a line, a note, a call. We're always here to take your questions. Thank you so much, and thank you all of our presenters today. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
So I have a question. Anna